My name is Stella Harrison, and I am 29 years old. On the afternoon of December 18th, 2024, I pushed open the door to my family home for Christmas. The house was eerily silent. There was no Christmas music, no smell of roast turkey, no warm lights. The only thing that greeted me was the grey smoke rising from the fireplace, and my grandfather, George 81, sitting motionless in his maple rocking chair. He sat there, arms crossed, silent as a stone statue, as if he had known and patiently waited for me for a long time. On the granite countertop, a handwritten note lay alone under an Eiffel Tower-shaped magnet. It was my mother's hurried, slanted, and cold handwriting. No call beforehand, no greeting. Only one supreme command was imposed on my life. Stella, Dad, Mum and Brandon are going to Europe for 2 weeks. You stay home and take care of Grandpa. His medicine is in the medicine cabinet. The family will be back on the evening of December 31st. Mum. That's it. Not a thank you, not a please, not even a I love you, Mum. It sounded more like a work instruction for a maid than a message to a daughter. They didn't bother to ask if I could get time off from the Riverside Intensive Care Unit. They casually ignored the fact that I had just worked 11 consecutive night shifts, totaling 132 hours, just to get a full week off for Christmas. They assumed I would give up all my personal plans. Why? Because for the past 10 years, I've always been the one to endure. I turned to look at Grandpa. His eyes behind his bifocal glasses still shone brightly, looking at me with a strange calmness I had never seen before. "Shall we begin, granddaughter?" he asked slowly. At the time, I didn't understand what he meant. I just wearily nodded. Little did I know that precisely 7 days later, they would return from their luxurious $32,000 European trip walk through this door and begin screaming hysterically. But I'm telling you the future now. Let me take you back in time to where all this resentment began to take root. This wasn't the first time they'd abandoned me. This was just the most expensive time. Thanksgiving 2021, Turks and Caicos. That year, I was 26. To prepare for a camping trip to Vermont with my college friends, I had applied for leave in August, 3 months in advance. At exactly 7:15 p.m. on November 15th, just as I dragged my exhausted body home after a 12-hour shift, the phone rang. My mother's voice was a blunt command. "Stella, we're going to Turks and Caicos for Thanksgiving. Your grandfather has a cold. You're a nurse, you know how to take care of the sick. Stay home with him." I sat frozen in the car for 18 minutes after that call. The cabin deposit was non-refundable, but what hurt me wasn't the money, but the absolute confidence in my mother's voice. She knew I would obey. They flew to Grace Bay Club, a super luxury resort 1,530 miles from home. I had to call and cancel plans with friends, accept missing 4 double shifts, and lose a whopping $1,080 in salary and holiday pay. I stayed home to care for my grandfather, who had only had a runny nose for 2 days. On Thanksgiving night, while spoon-feeding him mashed potatoes, I scrolled through Instagram. On the screen was a picture of the 4 of them, my parents and my brother, Brandon, glowing on a pristine white sand beach under turquoise water. My mother captioned it, "Family is everything." A friend commented, "Where's Stella?" My mother replied a few minutes later with a smiley face. "She's home taking care of her dad. Someone has to make the sacrifice." My dad turned 56. My brother Brandon proudly messaged the family group chat, 2 suites booked at Carneros Resort and Spa, $800 a night. That's $12,800 total, not including airfare and the Michelin dinner. "Let's go, everyone," I timidly replied. 2 suites is 4 people. What about me? 11 minutes later, Mom messaged Grandpa. Has a heart appointment on July 18th. You're off that week, right? Drive him there. I had my schedule free because I had planned a hiking trip in Acadia National Park. I'd even bought new hiking boots. What was the result? Grandpa's heart appointment lasted only 45 minutes. Dr. Catherine Patel said his heart was healthier than a 65-year-old's. Then I spent 7.5 days alone in an empty house watching Instagram stories of my dad, enjoying premium Cabernet Sauvignon at the V. Satui wine cellar. Brandon with his arms around my parents' shoulders, and the caption, "The best parents in the world." The camping trip was cancelled. My friends went without me. They haven't called me since. May 18th, 2024. A wedding in Martha's Vineyard. This is the deepest stab wound, the one that makes my chest tighten every time I remember it. Sarah, my best friend and college roommate, got married. I was the bridesmaid. I had prepared for 8 months, spending $350 on a navy blue silk dress and $180 on a hair appointment. 8 days before the wedding. At dinner, my father cut a piece of steak and said nonchalantly, "Stella, you have to cancel your friend's wedding. The CEO's family is having a wedding on the same day. We only have 3 guests. Brandon needs to go to meet with partners from Goldman Sachs. This is your brother's career opportunity." I dropped my fork, trembling. "But I'm the bridesmaid." My mother didn't even look up from her plate. "Call Sarah. Tell her Grandpa is sick. She'll understand." But he's not sick. She doesn't need to know that. That night, I cried until I couldn't breathe. I didn't have the courage to talk to her directly, so I left a voicemail for Sarah at 11:42 p.m. The next morning, she replied with just 3 words I understand. No heart emojis, no words of comfort. I lost my best friend that day. Time and time again, I was used as a stepping stone, sacrificed for my brother's future. I swallowed my tears, deluding myself that every family is like this, until the call on December 17th, 2024. Back on the afternoon of December 18th, 2024. After reading my mother's note, I walked into the living room. Grandpa George was still watching me. His gaze wasn't one of pity, but of assessment, like a general observing a soldier returning from battle. "Have you ever gotten angry?" he suddenly asked. I froze, adjusting my glasses. I'm used to it." He nodded slowly, uttering a mysterious sentence. "Good. Then we can begin." December the 22nd, the first clue. That morning, as I passed my grandfather's usually locked study, I saw the door slightly ajar. On the oak desk was a large yellow envelope from Wilson and Associates Law Office. Above it was a bright red stamp, confidential. Confidential lawyer and client, with the words Will and Inheritance George R. Harrison. My grandfather had been standing behind me all along, coldly saying, "It's just some paperwork. You don't need to worry." But I knew he'd deliberately left the door open. He wanted me to see. December 24th, the fateful Christmas Eve. I woke up at 6 a.m. On my dressing table was a white, handwritten envelope to Stella. Open on December 24th. When I tore open the envelope, a $5,000 check fell out. And underneath was my grandfather's 2-page handwritten letter. These words turned my world upside down. "My dearest Stella, if you're reading this, it means you've been with me for 6 days. I want you to know one thing. I've seen it all. Thanksgiving 2021. Summer 2023. May 2024. And now Christmas 2024. They abandoned you time and time again. I've been silent all these years because I needed to be sure. I needed to see who you would be when no one was watching, when there were no rewards, only kindness. This $5,000 check is my Christmas gift just for you. Don't share it with anyone. On December 26th, Attorney Wilson will be coming to the house. I'm not a poor old man, Stella. I have a lot of money, more than your father thinks, more than anyone can imagine. And I'm leaving the majority of that fortune to you. No. It's not just because you're my granddaughter, but because you're the only one in this family who understands the meaning of selfless care. Your father will be angry. Your mother will cry. Brandon will go crazy. But I'm giving you the power to decide what happens next. They'll have a chance to atone, but the final judgment rests in your hands. I read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down my face. After 10 years of being treated as invisible, finally someone saw through me. I rushed downstairs. My grandfather was drinking coffee. "Grandpa, how much money do you really have?" I asked, trembling. He calmly took a sip, about $20,800, depending on the stock market that day. I collapsed onto the sofa. $20 million. It turned out that he had sold off 18 rental properties from the 1970s between 2008 and 2015, pouring all the money into index funds. Yet he still lived austerely, wearing a worn-out shirt, driving a 2004 Toyota, and watching a vintage 1992 Sony television. Grandpa smiled slyly. "Money doesn't change a person's character, Stella. It only exaggerates who they are. I'm giving you $15.2 million. The rest goes to charity. But listen, I've made a special clause. Your parents and Brandon will have the chance to get some of the money back, but only if they can prove they've changed. And you, Stella, will be the sole judge to determine whether their apology is genuine or not." While my grandfather and I were quietly plotting a spectacular coup in the frigid town of Greenwich across the Atlantic, my family was enjoying the life of the super-rich. I knew the details because my mother and brother constantly threw that extravagance on social media. It was like a ledger of betrayal meticulously calculated down to the dollar. 1. Paris, France, December 19th to 22nd. Accommodation 5-star Le Maurice Hotel on Rue de Rivoli. Price $850 per night. Total for 4 nights $3,655. Dining dinner at Le Jules Verne 1 Michelin star located right on the Eiffel Tower. Tasting menu $450 per person. 4 people $1,935. Entertainment, private tour of the Palace of Versailles $645, and dinner cruise on the Seine $645. My mum's photo, 4 people holding champagne glasses on the cruise. Caption: perfect family moment. #blessed. Aunt Susan's comment reappears. "Where's Stella?" My mum's answer is still, "She's home taking care of Dad. Someone else has to do it." Stella's reality. I'm sitting eating a pathological meal of boiled chicken breast and boiled cauliflower with my grandfather in a dimly lit kitchen to save electricity. 2. Zermatt, Switzerland, December 23rd to 25th. Accommodation, the Omnia Hotel carved into the Alps. Price 1,200 Swiss francs per night. 3 nights $4,140. Experience Matterhorn. Ski pass for 4 people for 2 days $1,656. Christmas lunch at Chalet d'Adrien special menu 350 Swiss francs per person. Total $1,610. Brandon's photo. The whole family in matching red sweaters beaming with smiles around a pot of cheese. Fondue. Caption: Dream Christmas. #family goals. I showed the photo to my grandfather. He stared at the screen for a long time, then sighed. "Do you know what I see? 3 people who need expensive things to feel valued, and one important person is missing. 9:45 a.m. on December 26th, right on schedule. A sleek black BMW pulled into the snow-covered yard. Attorney Jonathan Wilson entered the house carrying a thick alligator leather briefcase. Grandfather George was dressed in a formal suit, the same suit he'd worn at his grandmother's funeral. At exactly 10 a.m., the will was opened on the oak table. Everything has been sealed and certified by 2 independent psychiatrists regarding the client's capacity for action, Attorney Wilson declared solemnly. Starting today, the entire administration of the $20 million Harrison Trust is officially transferred to Ms. Stella Marie Harrison. I stared at the $20,180,000 figure on the legal documents. My heart pounded. The greatest family tragedy in Harrison history was about to unfold. My parents and Brandon are still happily checking in at a fancy restaurant in Rome, completely unaware that the seat of power in this family has changed hands. They think they own the world with my father's CFO salary and Brandon's arrogance. They don't know that my grandfather and I have pulled the rug out from under them. In just 5 days, on December the 31st, they will land at JFK Airport and return home. They will walk in here tired but proud, ready to toss me some cheap souvenirs hastily bought at the airport as a token of their gratitude. But this time I won't be in the kitchen. I will be in the chair of honor. The afternoon of December 31st, 2024. A blizzard swept through Connecticut, the temperature plummeting. In the Harrisons' living room, the atmosphere was 100 times colder and more tense. Unlike previous years, I hadn't prepared a hot meal to serve them. I wore black trousers and a finely tailored dark silk shirt, an outfit I'd bought with a credit card guaranteed by the Harrison Trust. At exactly 5:42 p.m., the headlights of 3 luxury taxis swept across the window. The roar of engines, the slamming of doors, and then the front door was flung open. Dad, Mum, and Brandon entered carrying the chill of the snow and a mountain of designer Louis Vuitton and Gucci luggage. They had just returned from Rome after spending an additional $2,925 on hotel rooms and thousands of dollars on shopping. "Oh my God, it's freezing," my mother grumbled, tossing her expensive fur coat onto the back of the sofa, not even glancing at me. "Stella, why is it so dark in the house? Where's the roast turkey I told you to come home tonight? What kind of work are you doing?" Brandon tossed his briefcase to the floor, his tone commanding. "Get me a glass of warm water, Stella. Hurry, I'm dying of thirst." My father, meanwhile, calmly walked straight to the kitchen, his voice condescending. "Where's George? Did you take your afternoon medicine?" I remained seated in my father's leather armchair, his usual seat of honor. I didn't get up, I didn't move. I simply took a slow sip of tea looking at them with a coldness they hadn't seen in 29 years. "Get it yourselves," I replied, my voice flat and devoid of emotion. All 3 froze. My mother spun around, her eyebrows furrowed as if she couldn't believe her ears. "What did you just say?" I said, "You all serve each other." I stood up and walked leisurely to the fireplace. "This is no longer a stage for you to display your arrogance, and I'm no longer a free servant of this house. Stella." "Are you crazy?" Brandon stepped forward, his face flushed with anger. "What kind of attitude is that? Who gave you permission to sit in that chair? Do you know how hard your parents worked to feed a freeloader like you?" "Feed me," I laughed, my laughter cutting through the silent living room. "You're wrong, Brandon. For the past 10 years I've supported myself with deadly night shifts at the hospice. And you, your Audi A6, your Manhattan apartment, it's all from Dad's money, and Dad's money." I turned to look him straight in the eye, is essentially rubbish compared to what's about to happen here. Enough. My father slammed his hand on the table, the authority of a CFO rising within him. Impudent call, Grandpa, down here. I won't allow you this kind of ungrateful attitude after an expensive family trip. You want to see Grandpa? I smiled, walked to the oak desk and flipped open the crocodile leather-bound document that Attorney Wilson had prepared. I switched on the desk lamp, the only light shining directly on the bolded words, Harrison Trust, exclusive inheritance. Grandpa is asleep, and from now on, Dad has no right to give him orders or mine. I pushed the documents forward. Sign it. This is a notice of transfer of ownership of this house and all of the Harrison family's assets. My father walked in disdain, but the moment his eyes fell on the asset statement on the first page, his entire face froze. His eyes widened behind his glasses. What? What is this? His voice trembled, losing its usual composure. 20 million US dollars, index fund stocks, George. George doesn't have that much money. My mother and Brandon, hearing the 20 million USD figure, lunged forward, snatching the document. Dad. This is fake, isn't it? Brandon yelled, his trembling fingers flipping through the pages. Grandpa is just a senile old man living on a pension. How could he have millions of dollars? And he transferred it all to Stella. 15.2 million. US dollars belongs to Stella. Marie Harrison. Where's my share? Where's yours? Impossible. This is completely illegal. My mother shrieked, her face pale, devoid of the air of a lady who had just returned from Paris. Stella, you tricked Grandpa, didn't you? You took advantage of Mom and Dad's absence of his senility to sign this. You're a thief. Sanitation. A hoarse yet firm voice echoed from the staircase. Grandpa George descended without his cane, his posture straight and dignified. Behind him stood Attorney Jonathan Wilson, who had been quietly waiting in the study. I was certified by 2 independent medical boards at Yale University as completely lucid and sane. Before signing this, will my daughter-in-law Grandpa coldly interrupted my mother. My father slumped into his chair, sweat pouring down his face. Father, why did you do this? I'm your only son. I'm the CFO of a large corporation. I know how to manage assets. Why would you entrust it to a nurse? My grandfather walked up to me, placed his hand on my shoulder, and looked at the 3 of them as if they were rotten, defective goods. CFO, yes, you're a good CFO, but a terrible father. You spent $32,000 on a lavish trip to Europe, then threw a command slip at her like a servant. Do you think I'm blind? Thanksgiving 2021. You made her cancel her trip with friends to stay home with me, then posted "family is everything" photos on social media while you locked her out. Summer 2023. You hijacked her vacation, making her drive me to my heart doctor, just so you could have free time to go wine tasting in Napa. And the worst part was last May. You forced her to cancel being a bridesmaid for her best friend, made her lie that I was sick just to pave the way for Brandon to lick the shoes of Goldman Sachs partners. Grandpa's voice roared like thunder in the room, making Brandon recoil, his face drained of all color. Do you think I'm some dying old man needing someone to take care of me? Grandpa laughed a bitter, contemptuous laugh. No, I'm healthier than you think. I've been acting for the past 3 years just to see how ruthless this family can be, and every time you abandon Stella, you're erasing yourselves from this $20 million fortune. The living room fell into a deathly silence. Only the wind whistling through the cracks in the door and Brandon's humiliating gasps could be heard. My mother knelt beside my chair, trying to take my hand. Her voice choked with feigned emotion. Stella, I'm sorry. I did all this for this family. You're the older sister, you love your brother, you love your parents. Please give Brandon some of the money. He's getting married soon, he needs his career. I pulled my hand back, avoiding that disgusting touch. I looked at the woman who had once told me to lie to my best friend, that Grandpa was dying now, kneeling at my feet for money. Do you remember your comment on Instagram? I asked, my voice chillingly cold. She's at home taking care of Grandpa. Someone has to make a sacrifice. Now it's your turn to make a sacrifice. I picked up my pen, signed the document decisively, and slammed it shut. According to the supplemental clause approved by my grandfather, I stared straight at the three of them. All the living expenses for this house, Brandon's credit card and my father's business support would be frozen immediately from midnight tonight. Brandon's Audi, registered in my grandfather's name, would be towed away tomorrow. You can't do that. You want to ruin our family's livelihood. Brandon lunged at me furiously, but Attorney Wilson and 2 security guards immediately stepped in from the door, stopping him. If you lay a hand on my client, you'll spend New Year's in jail, Attorney Wilson declared coldly. I stood up, adjusted my collar, and looked at my parents and brother, trembling in utter humiliation. I'm not ruining your livelihood. My grandfather left a humane clause. I said each word slow and heavy. Every year you will receive a basic living allowance, but how much it is and whether it gets increased depends entirely on how you treat me. Every month you must write a report, kneel and apologize to me, and apologize to the spirits of the friends you forced me to betray. If I find your sincerity satisfactory, I will give you a little. Otherwise, I leaned closer to Brandon and whispered, you will have to take the bus to work and experience what it's like to be a hired hand, the very thing you despised. My father's hands rested on the table, his lifelong pride completely shattered by the daughter he considered worthless. My mother sobbed uncontrollably, and Brandon punched the wall in helplessness. I turned and hugged Grandpa George. He smiled, his eyes filled with pride. The clock struck midnight. The sound of fireworks celebrating the new year 2025 echoed in the distance. A new year has begun. A new chapter in my life has opened. From this moment on, Stella Harrison is no longer someone left behind. I am the one who holds my own destiny in my hands, and the destiny of those who have hurt me.